All right, welcome back to Intermediate Coding in Minecraft with your favorite computer science and coding teacher, Mr. Pitts. So this is the lesson 2 challenge assessment. I guess I'm gonna call it a supplemental, right? So if you're watching this, the assumption is either that you're going to be teaching this or that you're a student who has already completed this and you just want to double check and make sure that your answers are correct and that your code is doing what it's supposed to be doing. So keep in mind, if your code does not work for all of the examples that we have listed here, build wall 3323 3222, all of those examples, if your code doesn't work for those, then you need to go back and give it another shot. Okay, so I'm going to be going through challenge 1 and challenge 2. Let's hop over to the lesson world and get started. Yeah. All right, so again, back in the lesson world, lesson 2, challenge assessment, part 1 of 2. What we're going to do is go back to the board, make sure again we understand the problem. So make code, create code that responds to the chat command build wall. I'm going to step into the area, press C. If I saved it before, like I did before in the last episode, it will be here. If I haven't saved it yet, I'm going to create a new project, but I'm going to go ahead and load what I've already saved. So again, we're going to have a chat command named build wall with no spaces. Remember, we cannot put a space into the chat command. BUILDWALL. Spelling is important. Next up, it says, and then it takes an argument, which is how long the wall is. So let me pause there and go back into the code. So how do we add an argument? We looked at it in activity 3 in the last video. So to add an argument to a chat command, what we're going to do is press the plus symbol. That creates a variable called num1. Now, when a variable is here in the chat command, this is called an argument, because what we're going to do is we're going to add this to the chat command in the chat, in the world, and that value is going to come in as a variable. So what is that variable supposed to be? Well, it's supposed to represent how long the wall is. So going back to the lesson that we learned in the last video, we don't want our variables to be sort of generic and ambiguous. We want to rename this to something specific. Length, right? This is the length of the wall. So when I look at length, I know, hey, this is length. If I look at num1, I may not remember. So always change your arguments and variables to something specific for the purpose that they're being used for. So that's length. Okay, so we got our chat command and we have our argument. Okay, build wall, argument. Yep, check. That is how long the wall is, and then it codes the agent to build the wall of that length. So now we need to code the agent to build the wall of that length. I'm going to hit reset area. Brings the agent here. Now there's 2 ways to make the agent build this wall. I talked about it in the last video. The easiest way is to use agent place on move. The other way is to do a repeat loop and have the agent move forward. Whoops. And then agent place back. Basically what this block here does, the agent place on move, it's going to have them, every time they move forward, it automatically puts a place back in there. So for this assignment, I think this is the easier way to go with the agent place on move. However, this is an option. For simplicity's sake, I'm going to be using this one, but just know that agent move forward and agent place back, it's basically the same thing. The way place on move works, again, is wherever the agent is, whenever they leave that block, it doesn't matter what direction they go in. If he goes this way, he's going to leave a block here. If he goes this way, he's going to leave a block wherever he's standing now. Okay, that's very important, the mechanics of that. So agent place on move, agent's going to move forward. Now, if I go in here and I type in build wall 3, what I would want is a wall with a length of 3. However, it doesn't matter what I type in here as length, because I'm not using length anywhere in the code, he's only going to move forward by 1. I can show you. So if I type build wall 5, he only moves forward by 1. And it's not because I didn't type it into the chat correctly. It's because this number here is 1. So the main thing to understand is that we don't want to move the agent forward by 1. We also don't want to change this to 4 or 3 or any other number, because then no matter what I type in here, he's always going to move forward by this number. So what we want to do is use this information to tell the agent how many blocks forward to move. And the way we do that is we go to variables, we grab length, and we throw that right in there. So now when I type in build wall 2 as an argument, it's going to take that number 2, put it in the variable length, and then when we go to use the variable length, it's going to move forward by 2. If I type in build wall 3, he'll move forward by 3. If I type in build wall 87, again assuming he has room, he'll go forward by 87. So let's test that out. So I typed in build wall 2 and he moved forward twice, giving me a wall with 2 blocks. Always want to test your code on multiple inputs. So build wall 3, and now he moves forward by 3, leaving me a wall of 3 blocks, which is exactly what we want. And then I'm going to test it one more time with build wall 4. Keeping in mind he cannot do build wall 5 because he runs out of the area here. So you got to be careful with that. So that is the code for the first challenge, lesson 2. It's build wall, length, place on move, and then move forward by length. This is just like activity 3 where we did the jump to the Y coordinate. Right? So we're going to add an argument, use information from that argument inside of the chat command. All right. So what I would do if I were you as a student is take your screenshot of, of the build like this. Anytime you do work, you want to have your name on it, and then you submit this screenshot for your assessment. If you're uploading to codingcredentials.com, again, remember to come up here, save project, and then what you're going to do is you're actually going to head over to codingcredentials.com and upload that MakeCode file to the grader. So if you're using codingcredentials.com as a grader, you'll upload that file there to that portal. If you're not, if you're just using Canvas or some other platform for the instructor to grade, then you'll go ahead and upload a screenshot there. All right. So that's 1. We're going to challenge 1. We're going to hit completed on that. That turns green. Now we need to come over here and work on challenge 2. A little bit more difficult. I'm going to hit reset area. Hopefully that brings my agent over here. Now, let's talk about challenge 2. Basically, challenge 2 is using the same code, because it says modify your code. So we're going to use the code that we came up with in challenge 1. And then we want to allow the player to also specify the height of the wall, which means that we're not going to just use 1 argument. Now we're using 2. So the wall will be a given length and height. Okay. So we're going to come over here. And what I'm going to do is, usually what I do is I save the project with a different name, lesson 2, assessment 2. Ooh, okay. Now this one's a little bit more complex. So what we have to understand is that now we have build wall length. First and foremost, we know we're going to have to add an argument for the height. So we add an argument, defaults to num2, and we're going to name that height Height. But now if I run build wall length height, so build wall to 2, what do we get? Well, remember, you have to put a space in between the two arguments. Build wall 22 is not the same as build wall 22. The program is looking at the space as in, okay, this is the end of the name of the chat command. This is the end of the first argument. This is the end of the second argument. So if we do build wall 2, what the agent is doing is just doing build wall 2, right? Because we haven't used height at all in our code. So we need to think about this conceptually. One of the dangers behind coding, especially in this class, is looking at a problem and then just sort of grabbing some blocks and dragging them out and going, is this right? Is this what we want? Do we put some more blocks over here? And the next thing you know, you end up with this super long code that doesn't do anything that you wanted it to do. Most of this code is very simple, very brief. There's not that many lines to it. So if you've got a code that's 47 lines long, we got off of the right path somewhere and off into the deep, dangerous woods. So don't just drag blocks out. Think about your algorithm. Think about the steps that you want the agent to take. So we've got a good start, right? Because it's building one layer. Conceptually, when I type in build wall 2, what I want is that one layer, but then I want the same layer on top of it. I want 2 layers of that. So let's save that and then hop over into the creative world to talk a little bit more about it. All right, so back in the creative world, let's talk a little bit about the algorithm for the challenge to part of the lesson 2 assessment. So again, rather than just dragging out blocks of code, hoping that you randomly get the right answer, what you want to do is work on an algorithm. Okay, so get out a sheet of paper. If the code is challenging and the program is tough, grab a sheet of paper and a pencil or a pen and just start writing out the numbered, ordered steps like you would normally write if you were trying to give someone directions. So what are the steps that we would take to build a wall given a length and height, assuming we're the agent? Let's just say there's a player telling us what to build and we're the agent. So step number 1 is we're going to build that base layer. We're going to build that bottom layer. Step number 2, we're going to get ourselves ready and in position for the next layer. And then step number 3, we're going to repeat that process. How many times will we repeat the process? Well, that depends upon the height variable, doesn't it? So again, step 1, build the bottom layer. Step 2, get ready for the next layer. And then step 3, we're going to repeat. That's the algorithm for the assessment. Now what we need to do is code that so that our agent will actually get that done. And here's where we are. Basically, we have the lesson 2 assessment 1 code, and we've added our height argument, our height variable to the mix. So where do we go from here? So if we think about it, step 1 was to build the bottom layer. That's what this code does, right? So if we do build wall 2, 3, he's going to place on move, turn that on. Agent's going to move forward by 2 because that's what we've put there. And then that's it. So step 1 is already baked in, right? That comes from the lesson 1 challenge, build bottom layer. Step 2 is to get the agent ready for the next layer. So how do we do that? If you think about it, let's do build wall 3, 2 for our example. Build wall 3, 2. He goes forward, 1, 2, 3. So that's the length of the wall that we want, which is 3. But we also want a second layer on top of this layer. Where does the agent need to be in order to place his next block? because if he moves from here, we have place on, move on. So he's going to leave a block there, which is going to make the wall 4 blocks long. We don't want that. What we want is the agent to be right here on this block, facing this direction, so that he can place 1, 2, 3 before he gets ready for the next layer. So in other words, we want the agent to move up, turn around, and then move forward to be ready to place the next layer. So up, turn around, and then move forward. So let's hop in there and do that. So we're going to do agent. Now remember, we do not want him to place any more blocks until we're ready for the next layer. So we're going to turn off place on move. Yes, that's right. It works in 2 different directions. There's on and there's off. So we're going to turn off place on move. Then we want the agent to move up. Then we want the agent to turn around. There is no turn around, but if you choose a direction and make him turn right twice, that will turn him around. Imagine each turn is 90 degrees. That's 90. 90 plus 90 is 180. It's facing the other direction. And then the last thing that we wanted the agent to do was to move forward again by 1. And that puts him in position for the next layer. Let's test that out. I always recommend anytime you make modifications to your code, add a small amount of code and then test it. Don't do the whole thing and before you test it and then find out, we got off track somewhere near the beginning and I wasted all my time on the rest of it. So add a little bit, test it out. Add a little bit, test it out. So this is step 1, the base layer. This is step 2, getting him ready for the next layer. So let's make sure we're in the right on this. Okay, let's see, make sure he's got some inventory. Yep, he's got plenty there. All right, so now we're going to run the same code. Is the agent in the proper position to begin setting the next layer? Yes, right? Because as soon as the agent moves, he's going to leave a block right here and then keep going. Okay, so what was step 3? So we got step 1. That was part of the last challenge. Step 2 we just did. Step 3 is repeat. So the question is, if this step 1 and step 2 gives me 1 layer, how many times do we want to repeat that? And the answer is, of course, height times. So we haven't talked about repeats yet. We haven't talked about loops yet, which is why it is sort of interesting that it's in the lesson 2 variables. But you go to the loops drawer, you grab a repeat. And the way repeat works is that it will do the code that's inside of it the number of times that's right here in this little indicator. So when we put our code in here, this will build a wall that's however long we tell it, right? Because we move 4 by length, and it will be 4 high. We don't want it to be 4 high every time. We want to be able to specify what the height is. So just like with length, when we pulled length in and made that the move forward, we want to make height the number of times that we repeat the code. So now what should happen is he's going to do that base layer, get ready for the next layer, and then he's going to repeat that the number of times that we type into the chat command. All right. There is no reset area here in my creative world. So what I usually do is create a chat command called here and have the agent teleport to me. And that way I don't have to worry about moving him around a whole bunch of times. So let me go back in again, make sure I press the green button. Type here in the chat. That way the agent comes down to where I am. Okay, so now I'm going to test this out with build wall 3, 2. Again, expecting a wall that's 3 blocks long and 2 layers tall. Three blocks long, 2 layers tall. Beautiful. So that is again step 1, build a layer. Step 2, get ready for the next layer. Step 3, repeat. So step 1, build a layer. Step 2, get ready for the next layer. Step 3, repeat height times. All right, so let's head back to the lesson world, and I'll show you one last trick before I let you turn this into your teacher, or double check your answer. All right, so back in the lesson world, we imported our code that we were just working on. So again, we've got build wall, we have our 2 arguments, we have our code here, which is step 1, which is place the first layer, step 2, which is get ready for the next layer, and then step 3, which is the repeat. The one issue that we're going to run into when we run that code here in this world is the wrestling ring, okay? Because what's going to happen is, and we'll just show you, build wall 3, 2, this is the same code, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and he tries to go out, right? Because he's coming out of this, out of the ring. So we don't want that. It kind of messes it up. It puts him, makes him teleport around. He freaks out. It's not a good thing. So the way that I usually do that to make sure that we don't run into that issue here, and again, if you turn in this code, of course that's 100. I'm not going to take any points off. I wouldn't take any points off for that. But to sort of counter that error that you run into where he tries to step out, if you just have him come off the wall before we start any of this stuff, then that sort of fixes the error. So make him move off the wall. That gives him a little bit more room in that in the ring to do what we need to do. All right, so let's give that a try again. So he comes off the wall one before he starts to build, and then he's done. So build wall 3, 2 gives me 3 long, 2 tall. And again, this little bonus line of code stops that error here in this world. It works without it in the creative world, the flat creative world, but it so it isn't necessary there. But here, I like to add it just so that it works smoothly. So there's your screenshot. Again, I would probably get a little room here. Screenshot this build with your name and the code. Or if your instructor is having you upload these to codingcredentials.com to use the grader there, then of course you want to make sure that you save the project and upload it there. By the way, this move forward by 1 line might mess with the auto grader. I'm not 100% sure if that's in there or not. But however you're submitting it, there's your code, there's your answer for challenge 2. So once you're done with that, turn all that in. You hit completed. Oh, it feels good, man. So we got green lines over here on challenge 1, green lines over here on challenge 2, and then we are soon going to be headed up to the next lesson. So hope this was helpful. I hope this answered some of the questions. I know this is a tougher assessment just because of some of the surprises and curveballs and all that good stuff that you get as part of the lesson. So now that you know variables and adding arguments to the chat command, we're going to move on and do some really cool stuff in terms of coding and computer science in the next lesson. So thanks again for tuning in. Thanks again for watching. I hope this helped. This is your favorite computer science and coding teacher, Mr. Pitts, and I'll see you in the next video. Have a good one. Bye.